These are his shoes, the last ones my son wore. This is his jacket. These are all his things, everything he wore. My son. These things still smell of him. My poor child. Why did they torture him so much? My poor son. My darling. When Bucha was released, I was told that 5 boys were found murdered in the basement. I recognized my younger son Serhiy by his clothes. The Russians tortured them terribly in that basement. Serhiy's teeth were knocked out, and the cheeks of the other victim were cut off. My son had 7 bullet wounds. The occupiers tortured him beyond recognition. During the occupation of Kyiv region, Russian soldiers brutally tortured and then killed Galyna's younger son, while the older one was shot when he tried to evacuate the citizens. The woman still cannot recover from this tragedy. This is the car of my eldest son that was shot by occupiers. How did my eldest son survive, I wonder? It is shot from all of the sides. How did he stay alive, I don't know. Did an enemy bullet hit you in the leg? Yes, here it flew in, here it flew out. I'm scared. I thought that time would pass and the pain would go away, but the pain doesn't go away. I constantly think about my dead son. I think about my second son who became disabled. Galyna's eldest son was shot by the Russians. He miraculously survived. The younger son was brutally tortured by the occupiers and then executed. How do mothers survive this tragedy? What to do in order to live on? We are here to hear you. We are here to support and help. Healing Hidden Wounds is the first Ukrainian-American project about women who suffered from the war crimes of the Russian Federation. Stories of violence victims, victims of hostilities, those who lost relatives, home, hope, lost everything because of the war. A frank conversation with those who are fighting for the victory of Ukraine. Advice from authoritative experts from the United States of America. The whole world will learn about the atrocities of the occupiers, and evil will be punished. 2 sons tragedy. How to overcome depression and grief. This is Bucha, a city where Russian soldiers killed more than 400 civilians during a full-scale offensive. This is the place with which the tragedy of Galyna's family is forever connected. Our heroine has 2 sons, Roman and Serhiy. In the winter of 2022, during the occupation of Kyiv region by the Russians, Galyna hid from the aggressors in the basement of her home. She hoped that the war would pass quickly. I was waiting for my sons here. I hoped we would wait out the hostilities here together, in this cellar. I slept on boards, covered myself with whatever was available. It was winter outside and it was very cold here too. The woman lived in this cold basement for almost a month, but her sons never came to their mother. A terrible fate awaited the young man. As soon as the Russians began a full-scale invasion, Mrs. Galyna's eldest son rushed to help with the evacuation of people. During the last trip, Roman put an injured 21-year-old student in his car and took him to the hospital. When Roman was going back to help other people, the Russians shot at the car of Galyna's son.
Це машина, на якій...
Is this the car which Roma used to save people? Yes, look, the bullets literally rattled the car. I have no idea how my eldest son survived. Roman limps and cannot fully bend his leg. The man's entire left limb is scarred. Roman remained disabled for the rest of his life. Did the bullet hit you here in your leg? This leg was also injured. It was munitions debris, right? Yes, it flew in here, and it flew out from this side. Roman almost died from Russian bullets. Galyna found her seriously injured son in the hospital, but the fate of the youngest son remained unknown. In the first days of the occupation of Bucha, Serhiy went missing. The grief-stricken mother went to look for her son, where Serhiy was last seen. This is where the evacuation of civilians took place at the intersection, and Serhiy helped people escape from hostilities. Witnesses said that they saw how the Russians took out the men who helped in the evacuation and took them blindfolded to their headquarters. where they began to interrogate and torture them.
Туди в штаб. І там вони вже робили, що хотіли з ними.
Here in the basement of the Radiant Children's Camp after the deoccupation, law enforcement officers found the body of Galyna's son. The man's knees were shot. The occupiers brutally tortured him and then killed him.
Вони там в підвалі катували їх страшно.
The occupiers tortured my son very cruelly. He endured inhuman suffering. In the basement where Serhiy was kept, the hostages were terribly abused. The Russians shot my boy in the stomach and legs. His body was hard to recognize because of the injuries.
Все, що тільки можна, і до неузнаваємості.
Galyna shows us the house where she keeps things of her murdered son Serhiy. The occupiers shelled this house with artillery, but the mother did everything to rebuild it. God, I can't take it. These are my son's things, and I still can't part with them.
Це кімната.
This is my youngest son's room. He slept here. How can I live now without my son? This pain does not go away. Time does not heal my pain. Journalist and philanthropist Mitzi Perdue, psychotherapist from New York Galyna Itzkovich, and the expert from Bulgaria Petya Dimitrova are ready to help Galyna to overcome her grief and pain.
I also have a son named Roman, and I was listening to Galyna's story and watching Galyna's story with my heart skipping a beat, as every mother probably would understand and every mother would feel her pain. Sudden loss is extremely painful, and sudden change in this whole routine of life is painful. But it's really important to restore some routines. It's really important to restore the course of your day, the course of your life, getting in pieces that will not change the past, but will build the future. So I would like to hear a little bit about Galyna's typical day.
Every day I wake up at 6 in the morning and pray for my wounded eldest son Roman. I pray for the soul of my murdered younger son Serhiy. I live an ordinary village life. I am a pensioner. Before the war I had someone to care for, but now I have nothing. I thank God that I have at least one son left, because otherwise I would have lost the meaning of life.
We watched those videos, we saw this car, and we start to understand how terrible her pain is. However, these boys, these young men were raised by this mother. She wouldn't want a different son. She wouldn't want her son to hide and not be there among the helpers. So it made some sense, but the question, Galyna's question is how to move on and how to live with all of that. And I wanted to ask her, in her mind, what would Serhiy do?
I think Serhiy would like me to be happy.
You were a great mom for your two sons, but you continue to be a good mom. You continue to do what's needed for your sons, for your living son, for your son who passed. They need you to be happy and to build back your life piece by piece. I also want to add that depression, grief, loss, it's a natural reaction to something as horrendous. And grief is a very tricky thing. Grief is like a road trip, but you don't know, you don't have tickets. You went on a trip and you don't know how many transfers you will have to do, how many trains you will have to take, and maybe you need to get off and you need to hitchhike. Who knows? Grief is unpredictable, but this is a journey. There is an end point to it. It's important to start walking on that road. Galyna has not started yet because she's living in this continuous, she's in this time warp. She's in the past. We need to bring her into the present and start rebuilding this present piece by piece.
I really want to get over this pain of loss, but I can't. Galyna visits her son's house almost every day. Every day she sees the shop car of her eldest son Roman. It is in front of her eyes. Galyna cries every day because of the death of her younger son, takes care of her older son's health. The woman herself risks her life every day and continues to live in the conditions of war and rocket attacks by the occupiers.
Another important part is the survivor's guilt. And I wouldn't get into it in such a short amount of time, in such short intervention. But this is something very important. It's important to work around that. And it comes with depression, it comes with all sorts of self-medicating, and it's irrational in most cases, 99.9%. It does not help quick recovery. So it's a very complicated thing that she's dealing with.
When I was burying my youngest son, I opened the coffin. Did you open the coffin? Yes, I opened the coffin and saw with my own eyes how the Russians mocked my son. My heart was torn into pieces, and I cannot forget Sergei's wounds. I cannot forget in what agony he died. Have you seen the bullet holes? Yes, I saw bullet wounds. The occupiers shot my son in the head, so that my boy's eyes popped out of their sockets. I can't forget it.
Of course, it's impossible to forget. It's unbelievable. It's who can forget something like that? But it's important not to be in this constant state of pain. And one way of working through pain is to use some sensory experiences. We believe that we have 5 senses. We actually have 8 senses. But it's really important to put them into work, because our bodies are connected to our emotions, our bodies are connected to our minds. So we need to activate this chain of events. And I just suggested now to Galyna that she can have a little bowl with cold water, let's say, next to her. So when she's in the midst of this crying, this nonstop crying, she can put her hands into the bowl of cold water to feel the water, to concentrate on the feeling on her skin, on her hands, and put them to her face. It's also sometimes it's good to do it like that, to cross the midline. So whatever we do like that is helpful. And if she needs to cry, maybe she can cry like that. Anything in your day now, these days, that would make Sergei proud of you.
My son would be proud that I continue to farm. He would be proud that I do not despair.
Galyna, I wish I were there in person the way I once was, because I would like to give you the biggest, warmest, most loving hug in the world. When I was there, I remember your garden, and I remember thinking your sons would be proud of you that you can still create a beautiful garden. That impressed me very much. It told me that there's still strength in you, and I admired that. My understanding of the entire war is that the Russians want to demoralize and crush and destroy the spirit of Ukrainians. And when I saw her garden, she still has the beauty of a garden.
Petya has her vision on how Galyna's garden can help healing her soul.
I really love the garden idea. This is a therapy on its own, and I know that right now it's more of a mechanical process for her, but I have a bit of an out-of-the-box suggestion. Whenever the weather permits, take your shoes off, feel the ground, ground yourself. This is your ground. This is where you came from, where your grandparents came from. This is where your son is, and this is where all of us will be. But our connection with the ground, it never ends. And people, we are energy. I don't think your son is gone in his energy form. He's still with us. He's still out there. His physical form is gone. And this is very, I can't imagine how difficult that is. but he is not gone. He is in your memory. He is in your heart. He is everywhere. He is in your garden. Anytime you grieve, anytime you do this is such a comfort. Imagine him holding you. Like, it's so comforting, and he is part of you. He will always be part of you. And cry for him, let it out, let it all out. But yes, as Galyna said, for him, in his honor, you have to continue.
Yes, I don't have a second way out. I have to leave. I have to leave, at least for the sake of my grandchildren.
Sergei's death, it has great meaning because it will influence people in the West to know how bad the Russians are and how much we should support Ukraine.
We fight. We will not fall. We will not give up. We will live to the detriment of all enemies. The Russian occupiers continue regular missile attacks on Ukraine and the region where Galyna lives. The woman continues to care for her wounded eldest son Roman and honors the memory of her youngest son Serhiy. She takes care of her garden and believes in victory.